Early morning at the Grand Palm Hotel in Gaborone, Botswana, and the anticipation is palpable in the air before the start of the 1997 Toyota 1000 Desert Race. It's round 4 of the South African National Off-Road Championship, and getting maximum points was crucial for the contenders in the various categories. In the production vehicle category, reigning champions Api Reineke and Robin Houghton had a 31-point lead over Cliff Barker and Malcolm Joubert, but there was no place for complacency.
Ons het alles gedoen wat 'n mens moontlik kan doen om hierdie byeenkoms vandag en môre te wen. So wat ons kampioenskapspunte aanbetref, ons is baie tevrede waar ons op die oomblik is en ons hoop dat met hierdie wen ons die voorsprong nog 'n bietjie gaan vergroot.
In the special vehicle category, Frans Chepek Senior and Junior had a 21-point cushion, but in the battle for second, only 9 points separated the next 3 teams.
Well, it's actually going to be as per normal. We've got the title to defend. We're going to hang in the morning reasonably slowly today, and we've got 2 days ahead of us, so we're going to go through the field as we go. We're starting 4th on the grid. We pulled 4th out of a hat, which is not a bad position, and we're going to just take it easy and keep the car together, because I think the important day is tomorrow, and for tomorrow is what we're looking forward to, the finishing line.
Racing Section 1 would take competitors on an almost 500-kilometer route in 2 loops, with a designated service point about 40 kilometers northwest of Molepelole. First away were Api Reineke and Robin Houghton in their Toyota Land Cruiser. They were followed by the first car in the special vehicle category, John Lambert and Hendrik Fourie in the Digidor Chenoweth. Kasi Kutsia and Richard Leek in their 4-wheel drive Castrol Toyota Hilux Turbo, affectionately known as Fred, took to the road, followed by the Chepeks in their V-Motors Raceco. Even with the sun up, it was bitterly cold as Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne pulled away in their Motortech Jimco. Having started 30 seconds apart early in the race is the best time to improve on your position. Things were already hotting up at the front of the field, and while Reineke and Houghton were still ahead on the road, Frans Chepek Senior and Junior had already moved up to second on the road after starting 4th. Lambert and Fourie in the Digidor Chenoweth were down to 3rd on the road. Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne in their Motortech Jimco were taking things easy initially, just checking out the conditions. Kasi Kutsia and Richard Leek also decided to take it easy early on the first day, allowing themselves to fall back on the road, but knowing that the Toyota 1000 devours over-eager competitors. In car with Cliff Barker and Malcolm Joubert, and just ahead are Richard Carolyn and Nick Harper and Paul McMahon. Barker were passed by both cars shortly after the start, and it's clear that the sandy, twisty road was keeping them all together. Some good rains a few weeks before the event left some water in the rivers, and numerous crossings were the order of the day. 1995 champion Greg Harvey and Boyce Stone in their Queen Motorspares Raceco were holding steady after starting 9th. Barberspun 500 winners Shamir Variawa and Liko Khan in their distinctive pink special, gingerly crossing the river and making sure that water doesn't get into the engine. Nardus Alberts and Warren Klaassen in a Raceco had the hammer down from early on in the race and were moving up the field. At the spectacular river bridge crossing about 13 kilometers outside Gaborone, just about the whole local community turned up to watch the event. The Chepeks had by this time taken the lead on the road and were pushing hard. By now, Schilling and Thorne were second on the road and trying to get closer to the Chepeks. Right behind them, Reineke and Houghton were staying in contact. Four-wheel drive was a distinctive advantage up this slope. The mud at this point was getting worse as more and more vehicles churned it loose. Lambert and Fourie decided on the flat-out strategy, now lying 4th on the road. On their way to the spectator point were Kasi Kutsia and Richard Leek in the Castrol Toyota Hilux, and it wasn't only the chopper pilot who was doing some low flying. The Toyota crew had some time to make up, and Kutsia had the hammer down as he sped along the sand. Nick Harper and Paul McMahon were fifth on the road and chasing hard in their Team Pro-M Raceco. That steep slope was getting tougher and tougher to overcome. A beautiful sight, the water in the river, with the leaders of Class E in the production vehicle category, Llewellyn Anthony and Chris Birkin in their Toyota Hilux, still 10th on the road. At the river crossing, things were starting to get hectic. Cliff Barker and Malcolm Joubert in the Pennzoil Land Rover had Nardus Alberts and Warren Klaassen in their Raceco breathing down their necks, while Shamir Variawa and Liko Khan checked the scene out properly before they attacked the river and the slope. Robert Walker and Donovan Roscoe in the Superpave Raceco were pushing hard and had already passed quite a few cars that started ahead of them. The Toyota 1000 was living up to its reputation and tough battles were starting to develop. Richard Carolyn in his lubrication equipment Raceco had younger brother Bux and Kenny Shorthammer right behind him, also in a lubrication equipment Raceco. Coming up to a marshal point, just to confirm that they were following the correct route, were Jackie Joubert and Donnie Smith in their Jojo Tanks Volkswagen Beetle. Schumi and Karel van Vuren started 16th and were going along steadily in their Mitsubishi Pajero. Niels Lemmer and Dries de Klerk found the conditions not too difficult in their Toyota Hilux. Making his long-distance off-road debut was rally driver and Total Super Series star Paulo Piazzamusso with Stratford Furcht in the creepy crawly Ford. Paulo was initially finding it difficult to adjust to the intense concentration over long distances required in off-road racing. Neil Woolridge and Paul Vermaak, who won their class in the Sugarbelt 400 on debut in the Mitsubishi Pajero, were attempting to repeat that performance and were chasing Lemmer and de Klerk in their Hilux. Hectic activity at the designated service area as the front runners on the road, Franz Czepek Sr. and Jr. and their pit crew make sure that everything is in order for the next 250-kilometer loop. Although the Czepeks did take some knocks, they had to get going as quickly as possible, with Kutsia and Leek now breathing down their necks. John Lambert and Hendrik Fourie were in the pits at the same time and were trying to make up some time by getting away quicker than the Czepeks. No serious problems for them either. Nardus Alberts and Warren Klaassen bringing their Rapsa Raceco into the pits after completing about 250 kilometers of desert racing. Now, behind Kutsia and Leek in the production vehicle category, Api Reinicke and Robin Houghton with their Toyota Land Cruiser in and out of the service area in no time. There was frantic activity after the pit crews for the Carolyn brothers and Richard Schilling arrived late at the designated service area. We asked Bux Carolyn about the conditions.
It's fast out there, but the sand's very thick and we're having problems with the engine temperature. Otherwise, it's fine.
Jackie Joubert and Donnie Smith's Jojo Tanks Turbo Beetle getting a quick checkover, while Harry Roscoe's Raceco gets fuel. Carolyn and Scholthammer leaving the service area refreshed and keen to take on the opposition, as Natalians Derek Pinnoy and Craig Jackson in their Quickfoot Raceco arrive at the end of Loop 1. About 50 kilometers into the second loop, and Kutsia and Leek, now first on the road, were flying. As were the Czepeks in their V-Motors Raceco. Although they had been passed by the Castrol Toyota Hilux, they were still leading the special vehicle category. Conditions were still very sandy, but smooth and fast. Lambert and Fourie in the Digidor Chenoweth were going extremely well and were about 3 minutes behind the Czepeks. Reigning production vehicle champions Api Reinicke and Robin Houghton had fallen back to 4th overall because of a puncture, but were working hard to keep in touch with the front runners. Jackie Hubert and Donnie Smith in the four-wheel drive Jojo Tank's Beetle with a Volvo turbo engine were just about a minute behind Reineke and Houghton. Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne in the Motortech Jimco were 6th on the road. Bux Carolyn and Kenny Scholtheimer succeeded in passing older brother Richard and were now lying 8th on the road in the lubrication equipment race code. Back on board with Cliff Barker and Malcolm Hubert in the Pennzoil Land Rover. After the recent good rains, the trees were lining the road, leaving a very narrow track for the drivers to follow. Leading Class E in the production vehicle category at this stage were Niels Lemmer and Dries de Klerk in their Toyota Hilux. About 3 minutes behind them in Class E was the Mitsubishi Pajero of Neil Woolridge and Paul Vermaak. While the only other Pajero in the field, that of Schumi and Karel van Vuren, was lying 3rd in Class D. This is the first season that we've seen Mitsubishi Pajeros campaigning in the South African Off-Road Championship. Seemingly, the flapping bonnet didn't bother them at all. But nothing could stop Kasi Coetzee and Richard Leek, bringing their Castrol Toyota Hilux home in front of everybody else after about 500 kilometers of hard racing. Toyota had the first 3 positions in the production vehicle category after day 1, with Coetzee and Leek leading Reineke and Houghton by almost 10.5 minutes. The 2 Pajeros were separated by only 20 seconds.
Ons het goed begin vanmôre. My temperament was heeltemal reg. En die doel is natuurlik om die Toyota 1000 te wen. Ons het wel 'n 7 minute voorsprong wat in ons guns is. Môre is die 500 km terug waarvoor ek baie goed gemotiveerd is en ek dink ons as span gaan baie goed doen. Ons is baie gelukkig. Ons het geen groot meganiese breuke gehad nie, ook nie 'n papwiel nie. So ons sien uit na môreoggend.
After a very smooth run, leading home the special vehicle field and in 2nd position overall were Frans Czepek Sr. and Jr. in the V Motors race code. The father and son combination were just over 6 minutes behind Coetzee and Leek and had a comfortable gap over Lambert and Fourie. Hubert and Smith were in a solid 3rd position.
We're in first and we hope to stay that way. We've got about a 4-minute lead on the nearest guy, but I believe the first sort of 8 specials are within about 10 minutes of each other, so it's going to be a hard day tomorrow.
And a well-deserved rest at the overnight stop before an early start for day 2.